So elderly Trump voters are now expressing a little bit of anger after a supposedly pro-Trump group founded by a former high-level campaign staffer had scammed them out of millions of dollars. Now, President Trump, he is a scam artist, of course. So it's no surprise to me that he is surrounded by like-minded scammers. Now, this particular scam is perpetuated by former Trump deputy campaign chairman David Bossie and his group, Presidential Coalition. Now, according to a study by the Campaign Legal Center, that group raised about $15.4 million targeting Republican voters. Now, the thing about this that makes it a scam is that where did they spend the money? It turns out it spent just about 3% of that money to promote Trump and Republican candidates. Now, again, the whole purpose of that group is we're going to support President Trump and we're going to support Republican candidates. Down ticket. Well, they probably could have used some of that help during the 2018 midterms, as this group's been around for a couple of years. In fact, they've been raising money for a couple of years. Would have been helpful if some Republican candidates, at least to them, got a little bit of that money. Turns out, no. Where did the rest of it go? Now, according to the report, 97% of that money went towards a six-figure salary for David Bossie, who right now remains a close Trump advisor, along with salaries for associates and funding for yet more fundraising efforts. So it's not actually supporting Trump. It's not supporting candidates. It's supporting David Bossie and his salary, literally, and also more fundraiser events so they can raise more money that they can give to David Bossie. Great. Now, according to Director Marketing Executive Walter Lucan, who spoke to Axios, quote, "There's no question that the money spent on programming is well below anything someone in the industry would consider a legitimate amount." That's because it's not legitimate. It's basically another grift in order to make money. This is a money funneling scheme that is taking advantage of elderly Trump voters. Now, I know, you're probably like, well, why do I care? Why should we care? If Trump supporters want to get scammed, great. I know, but elderly people, they're the ones who always get taken advantage of when it comes to phone scams, Nigerian princes, etc., right? And so, I don't know, man. I don't like people getting scammed. Part of why I do the show is to try to educate people, even Trump voters, that the GOP and Republicans are not in your best interest. It's also why I go after the Democrats, because there are Democrats also that are there to scam you and to serve corporations and not you. So I think it's like a PSA. Don't trust these people. And whatever you do, don't just give random people money unless you know exactly where it's going. And unfortunately, a lot of these supporters didn't. Now, a majority of donors identified in the group tax forms said that they were retired, according to Axios, and the Campaign Legal Center's report showed that the group's Facebook ads were overwhelmingly targeted to and viewed by Facebook users 65 or older. So they were targeted specifically because they were more prone to getting scammed. Now, one of the group's top fundraising vendors, the telemarketing firm InfoCision, had recently paid a large settlement after the FTC accused them of false and misleading tactics and preying on the elderly. That group worked with the Presidential Coalition. And of course, they went after older people. And so now these reports are out. Some of the donors are expressing a little bit of regret. They're not happy about it. For example, 86-year-old Minnesota retiree Wallace Payne. Now, he told Axios, quote, "I'm old and easily fooled, I guess. It's disappointing. Very disappointing." Well, I would agree. Barbara Bloom, a retired widow in her 70s, says, "I thought the money was going towards the president." Well, it turns out, nope. It did not go to the president. It went in Bossie's pockets. One more here. 85-year-old George Kunkel said he donated $101,000. Can you believe that? That is a lot of money. He donated that because he thought the money would go towards supporting President Trump. And he said, quote, "I know some of it went to the president in his campaign because I saw the ads." But no, it didn't. Those ads were not from the president. Those ads were from this group. And again, a lot of that money, 3% of it was spent on things to support President Trump in his campaign and to support other Republicans. The rest of it went to Bossy's six-figure salary, as I said before. Now, by the way, Bossy could be in a little bit of trouble because even though he is a close advisor to Donald Trump and even recently flew with him to a rally in Michigan back in March, if Trump finds out, it's going to be bad. Now, I'll get to that in a minute. Now, Bossy, of course, saw this report and immediately claimed that it was fake news and ignored the spending of campaign stuff because it turns out running a campaign is pretty expensive. However, that is quickly debunked by the group's own tax records, which show that it spent more on copies of Bossy's book, Trump's Enemies, and other books to give to donors than it did on direct political activity. Now, buying books in bulk, that's what a lot of right-wingers do. Laura Ingraham did it. Ann Coulter did it. David Bossy taking all of this donor money and just buying his own book. I mean, what that does is, of course, that funnels that campaign money right into David Bossy's pocket. I mean, it's one of the most insidious ways of doing it. Now, another $650,000 went to two other groups ran by David Bossy, Citizens United and the Citizens United Foundation. Much more than it spent on direct political activity. MAGA guys, guess what? He scammed you. He took your money. And he used it to buy his own books so that he can get paid. He is a scam artist. He is a grifter. And unfortunately, it's the same as Donald Trump. You don't see it because you don't want to. You don't want to say, oh man, turns out like I got screwed over. And it sucks. Well, that's what happens. Now, the CLC also noted that, quote, "Not only do these dubious practices mislead and potentially even prey upon vulnerable populations like the elderly, they also drain resources away from more effective political groups. And so that ends up hurting Donald Trump, your own candidate. Shocker. And so by giving to these scam artist groups connected to Trump, you're actually hurting Trump and Republicans." Now, a senior Trump administration official also told Axios that Trump, and this is their response here, told Axios that Trump would not be happy if he learns about what Bossy has been up to, because that effort siphons money away from the president's own fundraising. Quote, "The problem the president is going to have with this is, one, he does not like it when people are perceived to be profiting off of him. And two, these are not maxed out donors." So understand, these are the small donors, right? Not the big corporate donors and the big corporate bundlers. These are the regular people that give small donations. So he said they're not maxed out donors. They give a little bit, and they generally don't max out, which is $2,700. And so that, of course, has a big impact on fundraising. In fact, that official said, quote, "This is money that many likely think is going towards the president's reelection effort when it is not. So effectively, every dollar groups like Bossy's and similar groups raise is a dollar that the campaign does not." Now, I love how instead of, oh man, I'm so angry and Trump's going to be so angry that people are exploiting my voters for their own personal gain. It's not that. It's no, hey, those are my donors. Those are my marks. I want to scam them. I want to take their money. Birds of a feather, man. Unfortunately, they tend to stick together. And Donald Trump, look, to change, I know I'm going to change phrases here, but the fish rots from the head down, right? And so, well, don't be surprised if there's other rotten fish around him doing the same thing. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent progressive media.